Welcome to SAT TV News. I am Larry Larrock, your presenter. In our top stories, 4 in custody for village council burglary. Bullets fired by Argentine UN soldiers kill Haitian boys' dream. Ukraine protests grow as president responds. And in sports, numerous matches scheduled this week for DFA's leagues. Details of these will follow. Welcome back. Minister for National Security Senator Alvin Bernard says the revision of Dominica's Fire Act and administrative matters concerning the fire and ambulance services are soon to be addressed. He said the fire service has to function with a new dispensation amidst significant resource constraints, especially as the process of development is not finite.
The government which I represent has given unprecedented attention to the revision of existing and enactment of new legislation, investment in equipment, human resource development, and infrastructure. The fire department is no exception in that regard. The total contingent of men and women was increased from 83 only a few years ago to a current total of 117.
Mr. Bernard said significant improvements have been made and continues to be made in equipment, while there are discussions to deal with issues affecting the fire service.
As we speak, the Ministry of National Security is currently engaging the management and staff and other competent institutions in addressing outstanding administrative matters with the fire and ambulance service. We are mindful of the challenges in which our men and women are asked to operate. In that regard, we also consider the prospect of relooking at our legal and administrative framework.
According to Mr. Bernard, one example under consideration is our current Fire Act, and with the introduction of extended hours of operations at the Melville Airport, the Act as it is currently written requires some revision. In more news, a national consultation assessment conducted by the government of Dominica took place on Tuesday, December 3rd, in an attempt to comply with obligations as a signatory to the United Nations to promote conventional climate change. The third National Communication Draft Project proposal was structured by a team of expert consultants.
We're in the process of preparing our third national communication. So what this is our project document towards doing that. And as part of that, we had to do a stock taking and self-assessment exercise. So all the documents that Colin spoke about that has been produced so far regarding climate change in Dominica, these documents were reviewed in coming up with this project document.
Dr. Eisenhower Douglas, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Natural Resources, Physical Planning and Fisheries says climate change is a part of life.
And climate change is part of nature. Okay, it's not something that that we can eliminate. It's part of well, many of you are familiar, the whole question of the high level of hydrocarbons, in the environment that is precipitating changes in weather patterns and rainfall and this kind of thing. So, we have to live with it. And my understanding is that all of the measures that are being taken now to reduce the adverse impact of climate change is such that it will take some time for that impact, to be felt.
Dr. Douglas says there is a critical difference between sustaining and maintaining, and that international communities are recognizing the responsibility to minimize the vulnerability of countries like Dominica.
Yeah, we have to sustain the efforts because there are a number of things that are changing, all around us, and one has to be able to adjust to those changes and ensure that you are no worse off. In fact, if you cannot be better off, you should be no worse off, because we're in a very dynamic, environment, and so we have to be concerned about really being able to measure sustainable development, because if you're not able to measure something, it's difficult to know whether in fact you are making progress.
The objectives of the consultation included to enhance the understanding of the status and trends in Dominica's response to climate, to build awareness of and to increase knowledge on the key issues of global climate change negotiations, as well as to promote national ownership of the implementation plan for the third national communication to the UNFCCC.
So there is evidence to suggest that the climate of Dominica is changing. Both the maximum and minimum temperature will increase in recent past. The warming trend is expected to continue. Winter months, although we are the tropics, but we have been affected by winter activities. But the winter months will see marginally larger increase in temperature than the summer months. The frequency of hot days and hot nights will increase, while the number of cold days and nights will decrease.
In other stories, a symposium promoting male achievement was recently held at the Public Service Training Center in an effort to address the concerns of boys and their impact on and role in society. This symposium was conducted because there is reason to believe that young girls are presented with more opportunities to express socialization and communication skills.
Today is your day to help us, the adults, understand you better. Today we would like to hear from you the ways in which we do not help you to be the best person that you can be. Too often we judge you and criticize you. To us, the adults, I urge us to step down from our fixed and perhaps judgmental perceptions of boys.
Ms. Austri says she believes that boys who do not achieve are victims of circumstances of which they did not create.
Broken households, absent parents, all too often absent fathers, neighborhoods steeped in crime, violence, drugs, and strife, school systems that are unable to cope with the needs of the boys, a society where there is moral decay and too many persons who do not care enough to support our young people. Indeed, boys are victims of circumstances they did not create.
Mrs. Margaret Jules Royer, Education Officer of the West District, says the idea came to her about 8 years ago when she hosted the first Boys Day. This was later expanded to Boys Week.
So we celebrated the first ever Boys Awareness Week last November 2012 with numerous creative school-based activities.
There was a panel discussion where young males had the opportunity to interact with the highly esteemed panelists. Panelists included head boy of the St. Mary's Primary, Green Shillingford, Magistrate Gloria Augustus, dramatist and community activist Ashworth Simon, Welfare Officer Oliver Wallace, Francis Joseph, Coordinator of Agana and member of Carriman, Mr. Burton Vidal, Principal of the Salisbury Primary School, Max Andrew, Education Officer. In more news, the police now have 4 men in custody following a village council burglary. Police Public Relations Officer Inspector John Carbon stated between November 28th to 29th, 2013, the Dillis Village Council office was broken into and a safe containing over 10,000 EC was stolen. Investigations conducted by the police see 4 men presently in custody and over $7,000 have been recovered so far. The individuals are all young men in their 20s. One is from the community of Bath Estate, while the other 3 are from Dillis. In another story, the police are also investigating the burglary of the Sufria Village Council, where over 22,000 EC was stolen. It is believed the burglary occurred between November 29th to December 2nd, 2013. There are no leads in this investigation. However, investigation continues. The police are uncertain if the two burglaries are related. On a more positive note, the board of the CVC, Caribbean Vulnerable Communities Coalition, is pleased to announce that Dominican Mr. Leo Kazimi is the 2013 winner of the Juanita Altenberg Award for Excellence. Mr. Kazimi is a CARICOM project coordinator with the Regional Global Fund grant. CVC board co-chair, Mrs. Donna da Costa Martinez said, Mr. Kazimi was applauded for being instrumental in mobilizing civil society's involvement in global fund processes. He has taken very seriously and executed very well the mandate to ensure that the civil society sector maximizes access to the available resources of the global fund in the region. CVC recognizes that because of his personal commitment and passion to these successful partnerships, the capacity of civil society organizations in the region have been enhanced. In accepting the award, Mr. Kazimi said any success must be credited to all the members of his team whom he shares this award with. He thanked the CVC for its regional work and for being strident in representing the voices of vulnerable communities throughout the region. The Juanita Altenberg Award is named in honor of CVC's founding co-chair, the late Mrs. Juanita Altenberg, who for decades advocated for the rights of vulnerable communities not only in her home country of Suriname, but throughout the Caribbean. In more news, contrary to reports that Mapping 2K4 Limited has brought or will bring the impasse with Domlec to the Independent Regulatory Commission IRC, a board member of the company said that is not true. Board member of Mapping 2K4 Limited, Mr. Parry Bellot, in an exclusive interview with SAT-TV denied this allegation.
Domlec disconnected that career, and that is correct. And as you know, there has been a long outstanding among them. But we feel confident that Domlec is not interested in doing anything. We feel confident in doing anything that would close down or mapping or make its operation cease. So we're working on that basis. We're confident moving forward. Sometimes companies do a little pressure saying, to try and make the point, look, we really need our money or whatever. Like sometimes we have maybe some other people we be paying, say sometimes the company providers, and we may be a little slow in paying them because again the revenue constraints. Some may decide to discontinue. Others, will give us a time and so on. So, that happens in the world of business all the time.
Mr. Bellot did not confirm the amount owed, but did say it is substantial. Reports indicate that the company owes Domlec $1.7 million for electricity consumption.
No, mapping is not planning to bring the matters to do with some queries in terms of mapping charges. A suggestion may have been an inadvertent, not deliberate, inadvertent overcharging. And that's, been the discussions and negotiations and clarifications have been going on for more than a year. But, companies will negotiate and clarify and query and so on. But we are not planning at this stage. To bring the matter to the IRC.
According to a statement from the board of directors, the company is determined to remain fully operational with ever-improving medium and long-term prospects. It also stated, while the indebtedness to the electricity provider was and is significant, by mutual agreement, Mapping has been paying and remains up to date on payments covering all current monthly electricity consumption. It went on to say, we accept that Mapping in respect of the earlier accrued debt has not yet been financially able to satisfy the electricity providers' not unreasonable demands for a start in reducing this. The board of directors will continue to take all prudent steps to put the company in a strong financial position so that it can ultimately clear all outstanding debt. In other stories, Dr. Jeffrey Blaise, Assistant Chief Education Officer, speaking at a symposium to promote male achievement, highlighted key factors lending to the support of male achievement.
But the girls are doing something that we have not, as a system, as a country, allowed our boys to do. And that is to work together to support and scaffold each other. One of the distinct things that girls do is that they work in groups. They do assignments together. They share information. We need to teach our boys communication, collaboration, socialization skills so that they can harness each other's support, work together, learn from each other in terms of knowledge and skills, and move ahead collectively and together.
He focused on time spent on educational activities, absence of a role model, as well as evaluating the curriculum to lend to the interests of boys, and made a call, therefore, to localize the curriculum.
What are we teaching our boys is the equity in delivery of the curriculum. It's the material that the boys are exposed to relating to their interests, as opposed to that of girls. And if you look at the curriculum material, some of which we don't have control over as a small developing island state, some of the curriculum material that we're exposed to, the books, etc., tend to lend to the interests of girls and not that of boys. So definitely we need to start not only localizing our curriculum material, but also ensuring that there is a balance.
He says the Ministry of Education and Human Resource Development has recognized the challenge and are working to mitigate it through a multi-sectoral approach. The ministry has continued to place much needed emphasis on gender equity, investing significant funds towards providing more curriculum options for students, particularly males. And in court news, bail is closed for Vicentia national El Richard De Silva, who is currently facing a charge for an indictable offense. De Silva has been accused of burglarizing a dwelling house in Granby and stealing a number of items including laptops, a PlayStation 2, cameras, jewelry, and $2,200 cash. The prosecution led by Inspector Claude Wicks objected to bail on the grounds that the defendant was a flight risk and believed that if granted bail, he would not make himself available for trial. Wicks further stated that given the severity of the offense and the value of the items stolen, the police are of the view that this would serve as an incentive for De Silva to make himself absent if granted bail. Magistrate Bernard Paquet denied bail and the defendant was remanded at the state prison. The preliminary inquiry will begin on 19th May 2014 at Granby. Meanwhile, Joseph Don Prosper of Talk Farm has been bound to keep the peace for 1 year or in default be fined $2,000 or face a sentence of 3 months in prison. Prosper was also fined $1,000 for maliciously damaging one of his cousin's louvers, $500 for harassment, and compensation of $100 for the replacement of the louver. The harassment fine is to be paid by 2nd January 2014 or in default 1 month in prison. The malicious damage fine should be paid by 2nd March 2014 or spend 3 months in prison. The compensation was to be paid forthwith before the defendant can be released. This has been the local segment of the news. Coming up next, regional highlights.